His first question was that I chose to interview. Most of the interviewees were had part in the war. They were fighting. He thought that all of them were fighting, but I would correct it and said not all of them were fighting. And which for him it means that I'm giving a perspective of the war, which is not really what happened. The problem, he's saying that the people who spoke from a sectarian point of view, and I'm telling him that it is, well, actually this is what happened. He's saying that even the communist guy ended up having sectarian views, and telling me, but this is what happened, and I showed how the process, and actually I showed that this was a fight between a class fight, يعني كان في صراع طبقات. حطيته بس كيف تحول. And just I want to clarify something. In one film you cannot discuss, it's not a book, analytical book. You can never cover all the visions, all the views. What I tried to do in this film, by also giving a little bit background in the film, what I tried to do is to show the process of displacement, how it served to divide the country, and and to make each one afraid of one another, and how it's continuing today. Now, the role of Syria, because he's asking me, he's saying that I didn't mention anything about the roles of Syria. I mean, this would take hours, and this would be like a Jazeera 12 hours documentary about Harb Lebanon, the war. It's impossible in a film. In a film, you have to take decisions. You have to choose an angle from where you tackle your subject. And even some people criticize me that there is too much information in the film, that there is never like one only way to tackle a subject. But this is how I was trying actually to trace the map of fear, and how, I mean, for me, the displacement, I mean, the demographic movements on the territory, and not only in Lebanon, in the whole region, has been going on for hundreds of years, ever since there have been Christianity and Islam living together. So demographic displacement happened either because people were becoming much more in number, so they outnumbered others, and between the Druze, the Sunnah, the Shia, and or with massacres. So this was in the process, a historical process, and this is why I was showing that in this last half century, what happened in the last 50 years. I wanted to show what is leading to the fact that today the country is divided, and why is everybody afraid of one another.
Yes, please.
Yeah, actually, yesterday I had a question also from the audience saying that, are we like doomed to sectarianism? Is this something inherent in our region, and why? And for me, I said, like, no, it's definitely not genetic. It's something that is due to like hundreds of years, because there have been a lot of literature on this, and we always ask the same question: why do we live in sectarianism? I mean, we have hundreds of years of governance of groups governing other groups, minorities, and equalities, and this has led to all of this. It's very complex, but it's definitely, we are not doomed. I mean, in Europe, it took them like 1,000 years to get out from the bloody wars between communities. So the film was screened a little bit in a secret way because before I sent it to the censorship, I knew that they will ban it. So I wanted to at least show it to a small group of people in the festival, in a local festival. So I didn't send it to censorship, and we screened it in the French Cultural Center on like foreign territories. As unfortunately, we like it, some invitations, and I wanted to show it to them, to the people who are featured in it. It's their right. So after showing it, I sent it to the censorship to release it to cinemas, and they said, "Oh no, no way." Because and the accusation was that it incites sectarian hatred and strife, and it threatens civil peace. Until now, it's banned.
You also mentioned yesterday that it was often shown for students in universities.
Yeah, some professors asked me to show it to their students in classes, not on a university level, with no publicity, inside classes. So I showed it, I give it to them, they show it, and I come to the discussions whenever they ask me. But for instance, even in an academic, the AUB Secular Club in the American University of Beirut, they wanted to screen it, and we decided a screening in last October. And it was publicized, and we put it on Facebook and everything. And the censorship bureau, they called the university 3 hours before the screening, and they said that you cannot screen it, and we just went home.
Yes, please.
It's true. It's true. I know this is a major weak point of the film. We try to alleviate the subtitles as much as we can. I know this is main difficulty, that the subtitles run very, very fast. Even if without subtitles, the dialogues are very fast. But I'm totally aware of this. Unfortunately, this film was mainly for me, when I was doing it, I was constantly thinking of an local Lebanese audience. I wasn't making it for the international audience, otherwise I would have talked more about generalities. I wouldn't went into details. But for me it was like a duty of memory, you know, because we are forbidden to talk about the memory of the civil war. Because after the war ended, there was an amnesty law, and the warlords, they did this amnesty law, and they still rule the country now, the criminals. And this is why there is like a censorship law and silence law, that we are forbidden to talk about this. This is why for me it was so important to go into details and to say, no, this happened, and everything happened, and you cannot deny it happened. And there are so many versions. If ever we want to write this history in school books for children to know about the history of the Civil War, we have to write the version of everyone. There is no single one truth. It's the version of everyone.
Tom?
You said that you showed the film to the participants. How was their interaction when they met Korea, when they had to share the cinema room?
Yeah, I was very afraid, actually, especially for my mother. I let her sit far away from all the 13. Not the 13 came, actually, like 10 of them came. 3 couldn't come watch the film. They were totally surprised. They were in a state of surprise and a little bit of shock, because they didn't expect this. They are not used to this in documentary or in cinema in Lebanon. They are not used to this language, to this treatment. I mean, they mainly see documentaries either from one point of view on TV. They are not used to cinema also as well. So for them, they were really surprised, but in a positive way. And I was surprised because I was so afraid of them. I was so afraid that some of them might feel accused. I was so afraid, especially of the Christians, that they will feel insulted, because I accuse a lot the Christian side and the Christian militias. It's like, for me, during these 5 years when I was making this film, I was always feeling that I'm a traitor to my community. Like I went to the other side, and I am a traitor, and I was exposing myself. I mean, before I do the interviews with each one of them, I was really like exposing myself first, and I was very vulnerable in front of them. And this is why I was very vulnerable and afraid during the screening, because I was afraid of their reaction, but their reaction was very positive. And you know, one of the young men in the first interview in my village, the Christian one, the one who says this is a Christian region, he was surprised to know from the film that it was not always Christian. It was inhabited by Druze and Shia. He was totally surprised, and he said it. So I think this is at least something positive that I have done, to tell him that no, you haven't always been here. We have, you know. So, I mean, the only one who was unhappy was the Sunni guy from the last part of the film. He was a bit unhappy. And he was, yeah. But he repeated, to show his unhappiness, I mean, he repeated most of what he said in the whole interview. And what I haven't put in the film, to say that, you know, the Hezbollah, he says, for him, there is only one enemy. And he wanted to insist on this, and he was not happy that the Shia guy had a better role in the film. It was obvious. He came, he took the microphone, and he was so he was the only one unhappy. Unfortunately, I mean, I couldn't make everyone happy.
Please.
Actually, in the beginning, on the first 2 years of work, writing and research, I wasn't in the film. It wasn't for me. It was out of the question. I didn't want to do like a film where I go from the personal to the collective. I didn't want to do this. But when my mother actually decided to sell the house, I was. It was for me very very hard to accept, and like a moment like I'm losing this place of memory, and how I wanted. I was asking myself, how am I going to keep it for me when it was going to be sold? And this is how the treatment, the visual treatment came. It was something I was living. It was for me, the only solution is to film myself in this place, to keep it for me in memory. And I think this is the role of cinema, is to be able to preserve and to engrave in time. Actually, you're engraving something in time. And I needed this. I needed this on a personal level. Maybe the other protagonists in the film don't need it, but for me, it became a personal film. It became a personal film, and I couldn't see it in a different way. And I needed this to be able to let go of this place, and also to confront my memory, my memory, which is almost non-existing. I needed to go and ask these questions, and I don't say that I'm healed now. I don't say that I was able to let go of this place. It still hurts. But at least I think I'm still always in this quest in asking if cinema could provide answers, or could be a solution or a consolation. And it's that also working in my next film. Could cinema be a consolation, actually, on a personal level, on a human level, a consolation for a loss? And I think maybe also for most of the protagonists, especially the people interviewed in Damour, because nobody asked them before what happened with them. Nobody testified about this massacre. For them, it was a kind of consolation that gave them justice, that they were able to say what happened for them. And I think that at least maybe cinema can do this. It cannot solve the problems of the world or make it a better world for us, but at least it can heal a little bit on a personal level.
Please. Yes, go ahead.
It was difficult because during the first phase of research, I met many people, and most of them were all fighters, even more than these. And none of them accepted to be filmed. And I was very far from production and filming. I was still in the research, but I used to ask them, would you accept to be filmed? And I used to go with taxi drivers. Most of the Christian old compadres were now taxi drivers, and they would say no, and they would disappear. And they would just tell me the stories. But then when I started production, I started remembering that I have contacts in Damour. Once I was attending a seminar about the massacres of 1860 in the mountain. So I had two contacts of people who had made interventions and questions. I took their contacts. So they introduced me to people from Damour, one person from Damour, and this one person introduced me to the other three guys. Same for the mountain. He introduced me to the person. So it was also personal contacts. And some of them, I got them through fixers, somehow people who worked fixers, but who were also living in the same area in Nabha, and they know, so all of them through personal contacts. But it was very hard. It took 1 year because I started editing and I still hadn't finished filming, actually. We were editing the first phase of editing, first 3 months, we were editing only the interviews, the political content. No visuals at all. And until this third month, I was filming the last character, the person. And we stopped for 3 months, and then we edited 4 more months, and I was still filming outside scenes. So yes.
Please.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the film, because it taught me a lot about the country. My parents both lived the war, but we don't talk about it at home, as I said. So I was wondering if you feel that there's a willingness to talk about it now within the next generation, or is there some kind of movement in the artistic scene like you're doing? If there's some
necessity to talk about it, or people are like realizing that they should talk about it?
Listen, many of the artists and artistic scene and writers, we are concerned by this, and we work. Most of us work on the same subject, on the war, but on the other, I mean, the people in other domains, or even the young who are studying engineering or finance, or they are not curious to know about it. My nieces and nephews, they are young from they have nieces and nephews in the 20s and in the 30s. My niece, who has 25 years, she was in tears when she saw this, because I mean she had no idea this had happened. It was for her, and even the students in the universities who are 22 years old, and they are studying cinema, and they saw the film. They were surprised and shocked. Some of them were like a bit saddened by this, saying, why do we have to suffer this if it ever happens again? Why did our parents accept to stay? Should I stay in the country or should I leave? But no, the general mass population in Lebanon, I don't think they want to know or talk about this. They're not much interested, but the problem is that the little bit they know about the war is the only 2 sentences of hatred is they want to kill us, the others. This is all they know. So
Sorry, what do the school books teach you about this period?
no, it stops in 1943. It stops. They don't. They refuse to write it so far because they're still fighting on it. They don't. Please.
Well, actually, my question was related to his question. So, what do you think that the younger generation, even though they're still feeding on the sectarian narratives of their communities and parents, that there's more distance to this sectarianized identities, or even more into how do you feel when talking to young people now?
Oh, they are more radicalized. Even those who didn't live the war, I feel from the young people I meet around me, they are more radicalized because even today it's more obvious and pronounced. I mean, before the war, Christians and Muslims were living next to each other, and there was no obvious hatred. Although there was a small civil war in 1958, like a kind of rehearsal. It was like a startup, but I mean, people were not fueled. They were not fueled as now. But after the war, people are fueled, and they are fueling the hatred in their children. So there is a past now that they can build upon. And this is what is dangerous, because they don't know the other. My nieces and nephews, they live in Jounieh, in like the Christian enclave, what I talk about. Only one of them comes to Hamra, to the west, what was West Beirut. Only one of them knows this region. And the others don't know. They think that the veiled women, they call them ninja. You know, this is very common. They call them ninja. And unfortunately, this is, shocking.
Okay. Please.
As you described the way the story started, the way the war started, first it was political, and there was the idea of building a kind of ideal country. There was a political process, and then at some point, as it became more and more desperate, it devolved into the sectarian war. I see it right now as history repeating itself when I think about the Syrian civil war happening right now, and that is a history that is being written. I ask myself if you are following what's happening in the Syrian civil war, and if you see similarities. Like, I wonder, when I watch this movie, would I see like a movie 30 years later about the Syrian civil war with the same themes, the same idea?
Definitely, exactly. This is what I always think about. I say that the Lebanese war was like a rehearsal for all what's happening in the region now, not only in Syria, but in Iraq and what's next. And it was like the start of a big project of redividing the country for communities. And I think the process is still going on. I would call it conspiracy, yes. I believe in conspiracy because there are but not conspiracy because they hate us. The West hate us, and US and Israel only hate us because there are political agendas and political interests and oil and gas and everything is involved in it. So, and it's very complex. And yes, of course, what's happening in Syria is very similar to what happened in Lebanon because it started also as how do we say حركة مطلبية, like a movement and a revolution wanting change and reforms, and they felt they didn't have their rights. And this is what, this is the same that how it started in Lebanon, and then it evolved into something else. And yeah, definitely. And because in the region we share a common history. I mean, these minorities and the majority and all the communities share a common history. I mean, we were all under Ottoman rule, and what next, and Palestine, and how the borders were drawn. And today they talk about redrawing the borders after 100 years later, after Sykes-Picot agreements. Then it's going to be divided and new nations will arise maybe.
Would anybody like to ask Reine another question?
Because there's someone who said that if the minorities help to make a nation, it's necessary to give this to another one. So
He means the majority, the Sunnah. He's actually very Muslim Brotherhood. He's more into Muslim Brotherhood. This is what I knew later after I finished the film. I know it from Facebook when I added him. Then I deleted him because he was. Actually, it was scary for me because he didn't make me feel this before the interview, and even in the interview, it was obvious for him that he is nostalgic to the Ottoman rule, to the rule of the Sunnah. He was nostalgic, but later on, he was like hatred speech every day on Facebook against minorities, and it was too much hatred for me. So, and this is why I realized that he is an extremist.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Reine.
Thank you. It was very exciting. It's surprising, and I'm really glad about this audience. I didn't expect that much questions and involvement. So I'm really glad. Thank you.